Amen. I have a special service for you this morning. We're going to do a panel discussion from some of our longest members of our church. And as I was praying about this whole month, the Lord said several things to me. First of all, the Lord said to me that October is Vision Builders Month. This is the month that we're going to talk about the vision. The objective is that by the end of this month, every one of you will know very clearly what the vision of our church is. It's Vision Builders Month. Secondly, I felt like the Lord said, you start that by just telling the story. Tell the story of who you are, how you got here, and why we are in the shape that we're in today, right? We want to tell the story. And that's what we'll be doing this morning, is really telling the story of Trinity Church. After we tell the story, we want to connect the dots from what happened during that time of that story to where we are today. And then thirdly, we want to point to the future. If God did it for us then, He can do it for us again. And finally, together, we want to get everybody on board. You see, the opportunity that we have is to come into unity. Is to really come into unity around something that's going to impact hundreds, if not thousands of lives. And so we have this opportunity, and that's what I'll be preaching and teaching on in a couple of weeks, is the power of alignment. It's something so powerful to it. And so my hope, our heart is that every person who claims to be and names themselves as a member of Trinity Church, every person will be in and will be excited about the vision that God has given us. So I'm excited about it. I hope you are too. Psalm 103 verse 2 says, this is the Living Bible, I will bless the Lord and not forget the glorious things He has done for us. That's our objective, is to bless the Lord and not forget the glorious things that He's done for us. When you talk about vision, most every preacher goes to Proverbs 29. Proverbs 29 verse 18 says, in the King James Version, the King James Version, where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no vision, the people perish. The New King James lays it out like this, where there is no revelation, the people cast off restraint. So God's revelation, His word to us, they're like banks of a river. They keep the river flowing into the desired direction. Without the banks of the river, then the water spreads out over everywhere, and there comes a swamp. And so many people operate their lives in a swamp. They have no vision for their lives, so they're just driven from one thing to another thing to another thing with no direction and no purpose. But what vision does is vision creates the banks for the river of God to flow. And so vision is really an important thing. The NIV puts it this way, where there is no revelation, people cast off restraint. They go just all over the swamp. The New Living Translation says this, when people do not accept divine guidance, they run wild. And that's what we got in the church today. People running wild. I mean, they're just running wild from one event to another event, to one thing to another thing, one book to another book, one speaker to another speaker, one YouTube to another YouTube, one Instagram to another Instagram. Running wild. It's enough to get you out of breath. But vision reins all that in and makes it possible for you to know what God's calling you to do, what He's calling you to do. The New English Translation perhaps says it's the best for me. It says it like this, where there is no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint. It's that prophetic vision, it's that idea that God Himself is giving us vision. He's speaking to us and giving us vision. And over the last 25 years, the Lord has spoken to me 5 major times through vision, through a prophetic word, through a dream, through a vision. Those 5 things really form the foundation and the pillars of what this church is here for, of what the purpose of our lives are together for. And I'm going to share all these in detail next week, but I had a vision of an army of people that love the Lord, but they're just asleep and in bondage. And that the message of the kingdom would wake them up and gather them for the king's business. I had a vision of a diverse heaven where I went into a church and saw every different race I could think of people, every age group, every socioeconomic group. And the Lord spoke to me that day and said, this is what heaven is like. And it formed the riverbanks for what we want to be like. We want to model heaven here. Had a vision of building a platform for the next generation. I'll tell you all about that next week. And then we had something happen here. We had a miracle happen here. We had about 120 people, 40 or so, weren't even old enough to be out of elementary school. And with the 80 that we had adults or so, we raised $1.25 million in 60 days. The miracle was that 750,000 came from people we didn't even go here. It was a miracle. It's what we bought this place for. And I'll be telling you more about that this week. Finally, the Lord gave me a vision here recently that I know is for us. It's one of the kinds that I'd already described. It is the idea out of Isaiah 54, and I'll be sharing it with you again. Is Isaiah 54, is that you will expand to the right and to the left. And God has expansion for you personally, for your family, for your place of business, and for this church. And so we'll be talking about that this week. This morning we have a panel discussion, so I want our panel to come on up, be here with us. I want you to give them a hand as they come. I'll introduce them to you. On the far right, Matthew and Jane Rowland. They've been here since 1990, he told me since 1999. And then Philip and Melissa Moss. Philip and Melissa absent for 10 years in Austin, but have been with us really. We've been in spirit together and been with us since 1998. Wow. And so thank you. We appreciate that. We thank the Lord for these guys. There are others. This morning we had several people in the church that have been here since we started, and several of you have been here for a long time. 2 or 3 people came up to me and said, I got married on that platform, or we had our first child here after we got here. And so one of the main and most important parts of our development as a church is the fact that we felt like that being a spiritual family was a really important thing. And that's really how we've sort of built this church. About 2 weeks ago, Pastor Matthew, you got the, see if I can find it, I put it here. You got the assignment to kind of bring all the numbers together for the last 25, 26 years, of which we didn't have records for, 10 or so? We had some records, but not very good records, right? But my mother, when we first started church, she was the bookkeeper. Then our neighbor down the street was a bookkeeper.
It's not her fault.
No, it's not her fault. Neither one of them. And so I think, we don't have all the records of everything, right? But the last 10 years, that's different. We got plenty of records. But here's some of the numbers, and I want you to talk about this a little bit, Matthew, that over 26 years, this church has taken in $45,265,000. Wow.
Pretty amazing.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it? In just benevolence alone, $630,000. Contributions to global missions, $4.7 million. Capital expenditures, $6 million. 4,702 decisions for salvation. 679 water baptisms. Total attendance, this is an interesting number. This is the number of people who are actually in attendance on Sunday morning, right? On Sunday morning services. And I'm astounded by this. 694,252 people have come through here. Now, that's probably double counting me 26 times, right? But still, that's a lot, right? 82 international mission trips. 1,066 people actually went on mission trips, and we've done 5 tours of the Holy Land. Matthew, talk to me about all that.
I mean, I was in disbelief, especially I was looking at that people attending in person on campus number, and then the money that's come in. I mean, every year we have a regular amount coming in, we give X amount, but to see it all together over 26 years, and just to be fair, we did all the averages and the percentages. We were very conservative and put these numbers together, so I really wanted to try to paint an accurate picture. But I was pretty amazed because we've been here for most of those, and to